This is Hog Farmer Chris from the Hog Farmers Charitable Foundation. And before you start listening to Red Zone in the Lab, check out our Amazon Smile, a simple way to support the Hog Farmers Charitable Foundation every time you shop, and it's no cost to you.
Welcome to a brand new season of the Red Zone in the Lab podcast, where nothing is off the table. We will be discussing entrepreneurship, education, Black history, health, movies, family, and of course, sports. So do yourself a favor, make sure you like, subscribe, and follow on all social media platforms, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And of course, you can always visit us at redzoneinTheLab.com.
We're back! Welcome back to Red Zone in the Lab with Deuce.
Welcome back. This is Red Zone in the Lab podcast. I am Deuce, and this is Dallas week. But do anyone cares? And with me today to kind of talk a little bit about the Cowboys and what it means to us Commanders, Redskins, Washington football, Braves, whatever you want to go by. Fans today. We have Commanders Hub, Anthony John is in the building. How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing fantastic. Appreciate the opportunity to come on and chat it up with you.
Yes, sir. So let's get into it a little bit about you and this Washington franchise. Like, how far does your fandom go?
70. Oh, geez, my first game was 1975. I'm dating myself. I went to every game from 75 to 92, so I saw it all. I've got, all the RFK memories, and I moved out of the area and just kept, in about 94, moved out of the area and have been all around the country, always representing, currently in Houston, Texas. I've been literally all over and, just stuck with the Redskins all the way through and, started a group, started a page, been doing it for about 10 years. So we've got quite the following, about 35,000 on a page and 25,000 in the group. So we're very happy to bring a respectful conversation to all the anxiety that we feel as fans and just connect us all.
And that's great. And when we talk about how far you go back, did anything predate you, like your parents or your grandparents, aunt, uncle? Like how far does it go?
Early 70s, late 60s, parents got season tickets and the thing started to grow from there. And then they had a pair of tickets. And in 75, my dad knew somebody in the ticket office. He got me my own seat, one section away. So as a 7 or 8 year old kid, I was sitting alone. And from there till I graduated college, I literally grew up with the people around me. So it was pretty awesome.
Yeah, I always like that when I bring in, fans that go back generations just to kind of hear those stories because, these days, as, the younger crowd, it's just not that type of commitment. They just don't understand what this franchise actually meant to this community. And it's just good to kind of hear those tips and be and just for them to hear that hopefully one day that they'll be able to have as much joy as we once had when it came to this franchise.
Yeah, it's been difficult. For me, there was a dead time too, right? So when I left the area and I started going around, there wasn't this internet, and then you start getting disconnected from the team. But what brought me back to DC, what keeps me grounded in my roots, it's always been this team. So I can't stop now.
Yeah,
it's like a train wreck. It's like a train wreck. You gotta keep watching.
Oh man, that's so true. So let's talk about the Facebook page. There's over 35,000 people. It's called the Commanders Hub. I know I was with 4 groups already, and then you told me you had a group. I was like, oh wow, so there's so many groups out there. But tell us a little bit about how the group started.
Oh well, the group started with as Redskins Nation Company or Co. And then we had a page, and that was called We Want Dallas. And we said, why don't we get together because these things do different things? And we became Redskins Hub. And we were Redskins Hub since 2019, and then made the switch over to Commanders Hub. So it's really, there's a ton of great groups out there, a lot of people working hard. And all we're trying to do is to have some safe conversations, respectful conversations on the team. So we're being respectful and then trying to keep the spam out. And that's all we do.
Yeah, and it's a pretty cool page. I'm only been a member a couple of days now. When I met Anthony, and one of the questions was, how do we know you're a Redskin Commander fan? I put Bruce Smith, and we all know we all know.
Nobody's going to say that who's not a Redskins fan or Commanders fan.
Oh man, that's expected. So season expectations before this season started, where were your expectations for this team?
I thought we had an easier record coming up, an easier schedule. We didn't have the murderous rows of QBs that we had to face last year. Bouncing back from COVID, bringing in Wentz. I had us somewhere between 7-9 and 10-7 or whatever. 7-10, 10-7. Everybody else right in there.
Mm-hmm. So now where we are, just looking over this season, of course, it's another roller coaster. Start off slow, get hot, and cool off again. We have legitimate reasons for this happening last year with COVID hitting us at the wrong time. Of course, the death of Montez Sweat and his brother. So, all those things kind of happened. But this year, did you see, especially going into the first Giants game, did you kind of predict that this would happen?
No. I was very surprised by how well Heineke was doing and how he was, pulling some stuff out of his hat. Us getting up there and on the tie and the 4th and 4 and somehow getting 3 straight completions to tie it up. Then coming back was my birthday on the 18th. So I definitely thought they were going to win that thing. That didn't happen. And, things started to go a little bit downhill, but we had some wacky things go on. And it just seemed like Ron wanted to make a change. I wasn't happy about it. I didn't think much of Wentz to start. I didn't think much of him last year. And I certainly didn't think of anything much about bringing him in because I didn't think the problems that we were having were quarterback necessarily related. We can't score, but that's not looking at Heineke and saying, well, then somebody else must be able to score. There's bigger issues there.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. He pulled him in. I think he wanted to see what he had in the $28 million quarterback, especially from the comments that he made after the Giants game about how he thought about pulling him at halftime. And then you pull him in the 49ers game where I think that was the best half that we've ever seen from Taylor Heineke, right? He was putting passes on the money. He was throwing some good balls. He was moving in the pocket. I think that was the best half that we've ever seen from Taylor Heineke. And for him to pull him in the fourth quarter, I think that was just like that's just something that he wanted to do. And I get it, $28 million quarterback, but you can't tell me that you want to win and you put the quarterback in that just hasn't.
When I think about this, I think about, all right, there's some upside with Wentz. He's got the stronger arm. He can lead. He can go out there and throw some early stuff. We don't have to wait to the end. I said we're not bringing Wentz in to show some moxie and grit at the end of games and bring us back, right? I think we can all agree that he's the kind of guy that with the strong arm that you want to lead. So I just thought about a quick hook from the start. If I'm going to be bringing him in and he's not showing it, I'm not leaving him in the second half just so we can watch him screw up like he did against Tennessee or just like he did against Jacksonville last year. So I was fine with Wentz. And my thought was, hey, if he gets the bed, excuse my language, he can go ahead and, we can bring in Heineke, but we never did. And then he did just enough at the end of the half to give Ron confidence. And, that was the bad error in my estimation.
And I don't even know if he really did. We ran the ball. We had the ball for 11 minutes, and he kind of did the Michael Jordan stretch on Space Jam to get the ball over for the quarterback.
He probably couldn't do that, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So that's true. All right. So now here we are, right? Sam Howell. What were your expectations of Sam Howell as the season went on? Because a lot of fans begin to murmur about him that they wanted to see what he had before next year and all those different type of things. Like, how was your feelings towards Sam Howell as the season progressed into where we are now?
Well, he coming off his sophomore year, I believe it was, he had a phenomenal year, a lot of talent around him. His junior year, ran it some more, had some, worse statistics, dropped in the draft. I don't think he dropped in the draft because of statistics. I think he dropped because he's a developmental quarterback. And that's really what I saw is he can be successful if we have stability at OC, offensive coordinator, at quarterback. And I really didn't want to see him play this year. Right. I wanted us to have stability. I was hoping Wentz would go for 3 years, and then with 3 years of development, Howell just, comes off, but it never works that way. And he's getting his chance. And it's the right thing to do with nothing at stake. I just wish him all the health, especially everything we saw on Monday, health in the world, and that he shows some promise. And I think he will. I wish we would start Heineke and bring him in when the game's a little softer. But I'm a little concerned with you can't baby him either, right? Everybody else, nobody babied Purdy when he came out there.
Right.
Nobody babied Pickett or even Bailey Zappi when he had to go in there. So throw him in there. Let's see what happens. And it's only one game. As we know, there's going to be a lot of changes, and whoever comes in, if they do come in, they're not the ones that drafted him.
That's true.
He's going to have an uphill battle. He's going to have an uphill battle trying to get to his starting spot in the NFL, and I wish him all luck.
Yeah, because Sunday is not going to be like no easy cakewalk. Dallas is going to be coming because they have an opportunity to win the NFC East. So they're going to be coming. They're not going to be resting their starters, especially early. Now, if they go up, they might rest them in the second half, but they're going to be coming after them. It's not going to be a cakewalk at all. So Ron Rivera. Okay, so Ron Rivera has been through a lot, right? He came here, name change, the cancer, one of his players losing their brother, another player involved in a wreck that someone was killed. Just everything. The
noise, all the
rebrand, cancer, his mom passing. Like he's been through it all. And I would say in the building, when you're talking about building a culture and what we were to what we were in the building on the football side, Ron Rivera has been to the Super Bowl 2 years in a row, right? He's a Super Bowl guy in the building, right? We can all kind of admit that. But on the field, he's been average, below average, right? I believe Ron Rivera has tapped out from his comments this past week. All down through the week, it just seems as though, even with the gaffe about not knowing that we had a chance to be eliminated, and I thought it was just Ron being upset or whatever, and then for him to double down and say, yes, I didn't know. Him going back and forth with the Taylor Heineke thing seems like he was pressured to make a move. He did, like everything. It's to me, I wouldn't be surprised if he stepped down, and I wouldn't be mad at him. I wouldn't be surprised. Where are you with Ron Rivera, Anthony?
So I think Ron has done a phenomenal job building the culture and having the locker room. There's been obviously in any game, there's issues, and any off-season move or any acquisition, it all falls on Ron. And he's the grown-up in the room. I have a lot of respect for him. All that being the case, this franchise is getting sold. And when it gets sold, somebody is going to buy it, and they want to have probably their own people. And that's a big leap of faith to say, Ron, I'm sorry, but we're moving on in a new direction. And these people, who knows who it is? I mean, we could play owner, minority owner, GM, coach bingo and combine them together. My favorite right now, I think, is Bezos, Jay-Z, Sean Payton, Fangio, and then Lamar Jackson. There you go, right there. There's your five.
Sounds good to me.
If that's the case, does Ron stick around? And I think the answer is no, right? So is it something less than that? That dream team of sorts, or is that a dream team? Anybody can have their own opinion on that. But yeah, I think this is the time. I think you may also get an owner with some patience. And if there's an owner with patience and they look at everything that needs to change in order to do it by a league calendar date, maybe, that all becomes a question for them. And I know a lot of fans are sitting there asking that question. Well, what could actually, be accomplished and change over? Or are we just stuck in, if you're against it, but are we just stuck with the same coaching staff and general manager and everything else for a whole nother year? And there's some precedence to it, like with what we did with Kyle Smith and Ron coming in, him keeping Kyle Smith through the draft. So really a lot of options there, and that's going to be the interesting part to see what happens.
There's a lot of bad stigma about shopping for a used car. Well, come visit us at iCargo Motors. We'll take care of you. We'll ensure that your experience is not only seamless and efficient, but also satisfying. Because at iCargo Motors, we believe that the best form of currency is integrity.
This past week, actually after the game, my whole take beginning when it comes to the sale is that only thing I was really focused on, Anthony, was March, right? The owners meeting is when everything will come official. By that time, it's going to be too late to go searching for people. And all the rumors that we have for the bidder so far are our business people. They're not fans. They're not like big NFL guys. So they're looking at the first thing that they're going to think about is rebuilding these relationship with these legislators, the federal, the state, the different cities. They have to do all of that. They have to, the stadium, the new stadium, all those things they have to think about. They have to build on. But I kind of thought to myself, I said, this is the NFL, right? This is the shield where we know things happen behind closed doors all the time, right? So what if during this process, some of these conversations are already going on, right? Like what if conversations of a new coach or whoever these new owners are or projected to be? I think that the NFL would know around the Super Bowl, maybe post Super Bowl or somewhere around that time, who is going to be the owners. And maybe they have leeway to make certain decisions behind. I mean, anything, make those decisions behind closed doors. So, it'll look like Dan is actually doing this, but it's not him. It's coming from somewhere else. And I also had a tweet earlier about this move is that maybe it's the new owner and the new staff that wants to see what Sam Howell has, the reason why they're putting him out there. But that all comes to how we met. But first, before I go there, how does that sound to you? My whole thought thinking just off the top of my head, but actually having no facts to back it up.
Well, I think there's two ways you can look. There's a lot of ways you can look at it. You're a little more on the clandestine side, like there's something going around in the background. But legally, they're going to agree to something, and then legally they're going to get a vote, and then legally they're going to settle on the transaction. So that's going to take time. It doesn't seem possible to me that you could agree to an asset purchase agreement, which is saying I own the Washington Commanders now, sign Jeff Bezos, let's just say, and then you wait 6 months down the line and you just sit there and watch somebody else make the decisions. And you just sit on your hands and saying, when do I officially write my $8 billion check? Or does the league, Dan, and this new buyer find a way through their, like you say, membership and little club they got going on here to make this pretty quick and the decision making happen pretty quick? Because I think what the NFL wants to do more than anything else, protect the shield. What's best for the shield is that this is a good launch and that you have anything that you can do for the new franchise, not providing them a competitive advantage, but you don't want to provide them a competitive disadvantage. So there are legal ways, documents you can get signed, but I've talked to a lot of people on this, and there's a lot of people that feel different ways about it. And the most important thing that I think I could bring to the discussion there is that this relationship between Dan and this new owner could go south very quick. Okay. If they let this person in to make decisions through some agreement, then they have a look under the hood of the car, so to speak. When they have a look under the hood of the car, it causes doubt, and there's more time that Dan and this other person are going to clash. So we know that Dan has screwed up his relationship with the fans, with the other owners, with his minority partners, with the Native American Indians, with anybody you can possibly think of, sponsors. He screwed up. And I think Kevin Sheehan said it best. He says, well, what is he going to do to screw up this sale? And that is my concern right there. We could talk about documents, things that can allow him to make decisions. How much of an adult is Dan Snyder going to be? And how much can this investment bank and the lawyers keep it out of Dan's hands and make it as clean as possible? And that may start with, as soon as they have an asset purchase agreement, being able, the new owner saying, all right, we're making changes here, here, and here. We're keeping people here, here, and here. And this is our direction for the draft. And this is our direction at coach. And this is our direction, in free agency. I can't believe the fastest it could possibly happen would be March, April, May, if there was no agreement. And that, like you say, that's the coaching search tree timing. That's some of these early free agents. That's what if you wanted to sign Cole Holcomb right now? If you wanted to sign him today, you're going to be putting future obligations in.
Yeah.
But so all that ongoing operations has to be worked out. What's going to happen? Is Dan going to show his stripes again? Is Dan going to make this a difficult transition, or is Dan going to listen to Roger Goodell, work with the good old boys club, and find a way to get this done fast for the good of the Shield?
So in the space the other day, we were in there, and I was in there at some point, and they were talking about Dan hiring people and moving and all those different things. And Hugh from the Commander's Post had posted a question, and it said, if conditions of a sale were agreed upon, how long would it take for the transfer ownership from Snyder to the new regime? We all want to know, because we all want a new coach, right?
Right.
And can a new owner start making moves while the transfer is in progress? And here's your reply, which caught my eye. I said, okay, now I got something that I can say in spaces to back me up with my wow behind the door thing. It says, in a buy, sale, and APA is signed as an agreement to buy and sell under terms. Also, an interim management agreement will be part of the offer, so a new owner can make day-to-day management decisions on the team until it legally can be consummated. So tell me, what is an APA?
The asset purchase agreement. So that's like saying I buy the team. And from what I've learned is the asset purchase agreement is simply a 2-page document in the NFL. It's very, like clubbish. This is how I'm going to sell my club to you, and you sign it. And then that's it for the vote to happen. It's very, very simple. There's not a lot of complications to that. Okay. The question is, all right, how long is it going to take for me to actually close on this? And that's what Goodell has to do to kind of push that up, and has to work with the new owner. So the new owner in a normal buy-sell agreement, and not one of these little club deals, in a normal buy-sell agreement, would have the option of creating a temporary management agreement. There's the problems with there's the good thing about doing that is that now you take over control. The bad thing from a seller's perspective is I lose control. And Dan is the seller. Does Dan want to give up control until he gets his $8 billion? Or could somebody new could look under the hood here and not like what they see? So the likelihood of an interim agreement in this type of environment, this is what I've been learning over the last 24 hours since we've talked, is that it could happen, and they could allow certain decisions, and there could be some handshake agreement that's going to rely on Dan and a new owner to get along and not make a toxic relationship and have a smooth transition. Or if Dan decides to be Dan, what's he most likely to do? And is he more likely to drag this out, to make it difficult? And that's the question. And it could all go away very quickly, and boom, they could be making decisions, or it could be dragged out. And unfortunately, I'm concerned with Daniel Snyder is he going to drag this thing out? Because it's all going to be on him to begin with and to end with.
I have a certain theory about that. I know Dan don't want to sell this team. I feel as though he does not want to sell this team. I think that he has no other choice. The last meeting that they had a couple months ago, I believe they're not going to admit it, but there is a silent count that they have enough. And and he knows that. So, and then I think another thing is Tanya Snyder during I think it was October, one of the games for breast awareness. I was there. She came up on the Jumbotron about cancer awareness and different those things. She was booed. And then obviously that she hasn't been seen since then. I really believe that the NFL has something in their back pocket to really say, hey, look, this is what you're going to do. You're going to do it. You're going to make this smooth, and we're going to get this done quickly. Do you think that the NFL has something on Dan to make him, force him not to mess something up and for this to be smooth once for all?
I'm the biggest in this. If you want to talk about conspiracy theories, I got layers to this thing. I got memes on it. I got all sorts of things on it. But I'll sum my thoughts up here. I don't think anything that's happened since 2020 till now hasn't all been sort of predestined to Dan selling the team. Okay, I don't think you changed the name. I don't think you did through Beth Wilkinson investigation. I don't think you retired the jerseys that you've retired and made the decisions that you've made all over this organization without also selling the team. And I think it has to do most evidently with the purchase or buyout of his minority partners and going over the debt ceiling and the league allowing him to do it. That $850 million transaction of buying out his minority partners, when he sells at $7 or $8 billion, he's going to make a couple billion on that alone. So, they could have made all the minority partners rich. They didn't do that. They tried to make it easy for Dan to sell the team in one big chunk. They did. And I don't think they did it out of the goodness of their heart. I don't think but I don't think he didn't have a written down Beth Wilkinson investigation out of the goodness of their heart. They did it because they don't want this to get turned into a what. So they're trying to make it go smoothly. And I think Dan has fought them every step of the way. And I think that's what we're dealing with. I think the Shield, Roger, the other NFL owners want this to go away. And Dan doesn't want to go. But I think also he's far enough down that pike that something has finally leaned over and closed the door. And you look at things like his wife getting booed at the stadium. That's terrible, right?
I know that hurt. I know that hurt her.
That could be it. I mean, who knows? Who knows what actually flipped the switch? But here we are. And as you get closer and closer to that point, it's like buying a house and making an offer. Your wife looks at the living room again and says, yes, that's where I'm putting the couch. You're already moving in, right?
Right.
Well, he's already moving. I think the more it's gone on, he's figuring out ways he can spend his net $7.1 billion if he makes $8, on the sale here. So I think they've already, from what I'm hearing through some posts, he's changed residence of record to England. There's been some movers hired for his house. I don't think these things happen and you start trying to, dig back into the organization. I think he's had his fill.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's and
good for him. Good for everybody. Get him out. Let's go.
And that's how we will end Anthony Commanders Hub. Please tell us how we can find you. And I'm also going to put all of the information in the description so you all can try to, go to all the links wherever he is and you can sign up to whatever he is. But you're going to have to know something about the Commanders. You ain't going to be able to just sneak in. So just let us know where we can find you on Twitter, Instagram, all the other outlets.
Sure. Commanders Hub, and Commanders Hub. Let's just keep it simple. My name is Tony Andrews or Anthony John. I'm on Facebook and I run the page and we got a group of admins. We got 9 different admins that work tirelessly to put a good place for people to vent, but to do it respectfully. And we're on Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, everywhere.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, all of you from out there. Anthony, we know your time is very valuable, and for you to spend some with us, it is a pleasure, and we thank you so much for that.
The calendar says that summer is ending soon, but we're still outside. So when it's time to hop in your ride, make sure you book the best mobile detailing service in the DMV, Miles Detailing. Call 240-273-4018 or contact on Instagram at Miles Detailing to book your service today. Mention Red Zone in the Lab podcast for 10% off detail services only. Ride in style with Miles. Detailing, that is.
Welcome back to Red Zone in the Lab with Deuce.
Welcome back to Red Zone and Lab podcast. I am Deuce, and this is Dallas week, but who cares? Join me today to preview the season, some of his fandom, and where we are now with How. Guess we might talk a little bit about the Cowboys. We got a reason to now with How. It is No More from all the way from Cali. No More. What's good, man?
Hey, what's up, man? I'm glad to finally get on here with you.
Yeah, man, it's an honor, privilege. You met through Spaces for what, about 2 months now, I think. No More came on and started joining the Spaces. He has a lot of good takes, knows a lot about the 49ers because you're right over there. And that's our little joke with No More about knowing a lot about the 49ers. But he also knows a lot about this organization and this team dating back years. So let's get into that a little bit. Where did the fandom start? I mean, were you living over here before? I mean, how did you become, Redskins, Commanders, Braves, whatever you want to call it, fan?
Yeah, it's funny because I actually get that question a ton from people out here because my NBA and MLB teams are out here. Mm-hmm. I kind of grew up rooting for those local teams, but for football, so I was actually born in Silver Spring, Maryland.
Okay.
So yeah, as a baby, I was born in the region. Back when the team was still the Redskins, it was family generational thing. My dad nonstop stories about going to RFK. I was old enough that RFK still existed, but we were out in California as a family by the time I was like 6-7 years old. So I'm pretty much considered California raised, even though I was born on the East Coast. And when I started showing an interest in sports and then football, you made the Niners joke, but they were one of the teams that were always on TV. So I think my dad kind of noticed. He didn't really want to push like fandom on me. It was kind of like, if I see you getting interested in sports, then we'll get into it. So I think he saw me starting just throwing on the local games because this is before NFL ticket days. You had to just basically it was whatever was on local TV. That was it. So he started seeing me watch football and have friends getting into it. So then he just kind of told me like, oh yeah, this is a team I root for. I remember as a kid, one of the first shirts he bought me was from the Super. I think it was 22 Super Bowl over the Broncos. Mm-hmm. And I was really too young to even know what it all was, but I had that shirt from a child. It's got to be in a box somewhere, like a little kid size Super Bowl shirt. And they hit their next Super Bowl when I was, I think, 11, 92. I think the Super Bowl was in, and it just kind of mostly. I think it's similar to a lot of people. Family just happened to be out here, but I think that's how a lot of people probably get their teams initially, unless they make the decision to like go against the grain,
Yeah, that's
not
cool,
me.
Man.
I stayed loyal. Obviously, if I'm still a fan after these last 25 years,
man, that's why I say if you can talk about this team in any form or fashion, you are basically a diehard from all the stuff that we've been, and you're still even if you want to dog the team out, like you're still talking about it. So obviously, it still means something to you. But to kind of season expectations coming into this year, what was your expectations of this team?
So I was trending towards maybe like 9 to 10 wins. That's I was basing off, coming off last year, like if we're looking at the roster last year, they went out and got Wentz. And like I think when it comes to like a quarterback like Wentz, and maybe we'll get into like details later, but I think he's one of those quarterbacks where like whether you're pro or anti, I think you can come in at like kind of a neutral stance on him. Like, no, he's not the greatest, but he was a 27-7 quarterback last year. So I was like, well, that should be like good enough to like operate the offense. And we were returning a defense that got a lot better in the second half last year. So I thought we were pretty well set up for like that 9-10 win range. We weren't quite like contender yet, but you know, there was a point in the season where it looked like we were trending towards that when we hit that streak and things were looking a little up.
Man, tell me about it.
But yeah, that's about it. You know, I thought the division would be tough maybe to win. And then, you know, everybody in our division got off to such a great start that that kind of put a damper on things right away. But as far as like any chance to contend in the division itself, but you know, there was a point where I was like, okay, maybe 9 more than 10 is attainable. And I think it was like up until this last month, right? The 9 wins didn't seem outside of the realm of a possibility. So that's about where I was settling in as far as preseason predictions.
Like, I already know this, but for the people that don't join our spaces, when did you tap out on this season in a sense?
I mean, I think this is, and it seems to be typical of our team, like in these recent years. It's not so much tapping out. It's like it's the peaks and valleys of this team are just, they're like polar opposites. You know, when we were at 1-4 or 2-4, it was like mathematically we're not out of it, but it's another one of those seasons where like, okay, well, if we're going to do anything, it means not only go on a win streak, but after that streak, you have to then sustain winning more than losing, because we've seen our team in the past go on those 4 or 5 game winning streaks, but it still doesn't mean anything by the end as far as postseason. So yeah, I was pretty down at 1-4, 2-4. And then when we went on the streak, it was like, so many things seem to change about the team. And like, you know, we've discussed it so much, all the reasons that went into it, but it looked like, wow, this might be a legitimate turnaround, just because there was consistency more than anything, more than just the wins. It felt like we found a consistent formula, and that lasted for a good portion of the season until that usual time that we're all used to. And then we lived through this last month. So I don't even need to get into details about that yet.
But no, that's where we are. For me, the second Giants game, we had the bye week. We had some steam going. We tied that first game by a left hand up tap from Deron Payne, and you really ain't heard too much of left hand up recently, right? But anyhow, you know, we got the interception, you know, and we was able to tie the game, whatever, right? Went into overtime, we tied. And I haven't felt that way in decades, right? I really thought we was gonna come out there. I mean, we got flexed to Sunday Night Football. The whole world is watching. We on the road. You know, it's a chance Chase Young is going to come back, but he didn't, obviously. But still, we was just so hyped. And then they didn't show up. And I was so hurt. I felt that hurt in a long time, man. I was so hurt. And every since then, you know, the excitement just started going all the way down. Like what that Giants game was that, and then coming up for the 49ers, we knew it wasn't going to be a cakewalk.
Do you sit back and say, man, these walls just need something? Feel like it's time to freshen up your place with something new? If your answer is yes, then it's time to call Rob of Lewis Paints Plus, the accent wall expert. Rob will even give you a free estimate on how he can transform those boring walls in your home. To book today, call 240-418-5241 or reach out on Instagram at Lewis Paints Plus. And for 10% off, tell him Red Zone sent you.
But let's get into that Giants game, because, of course, Ron Rivera had these comments after the Giants game that he thought about bringing Heineke in the game at halftime, right? Where are you right now with that change going into with the change that he made in the 49ers game and then him actually going to Wentz for the Browns game? Through that 3-game stretch, where are you with Ron Rivera and his his quarterback confusion, I will call it.
So, I'm not going to go back on the stuff I said because from the spaces, I was an advocate for making the change. Like, I don't want a Monday morning quarterback and say like I said things I didn't.
Right.
I thought we kind of plateaued where we could get with Heineke. I just felt it was that familiar trajectory where Heineke comes in. You know what you're going to get from him. He's going to keep things moving, but not necessarily shoulder the offense or aspects of it. And like before, it did work for a while. And I was like, okay, we're cruising. But it feels like with Heineke, a lot of times once the wall is hit, there's nowhere to go from backwards. It seems like he has the offense has a hard time recovering once that wall is hit. So when the rumors started that, looks like they might want to go back to Wentz, this is, I guess I don't want to be making excuses for my own opinion, but I almost was like, well, it's in the coach's hands. If they feel like what they're seeing from Wentz, like, because, he's now healthy, he's practicing, he's probably getting some reps with the ones, I would assume, before the official changes made, just to see. So to me, I was like, well, if the coaches, obviously the coaches are making this decision because they have to feel that whatever they're seeing from him gives the team the best chance to win if he's in there. So there's a reason I'm a fan and not a coach, because obviously what we saw from Wentz says no, he wasn't the best reason. But I'm more kind of bewildered at what is it that the coaches saw that had to make that decision. Because as a fan, I can cherry pick what I want to look at to make my arguments and say, hey, Wentz did this really good when he was in there, and we can try to minimize what he doesn't do well as a fan speaking, right? The coaches are the ones that see him all practice long, every rep he takes. So if anything, it's more my confusion about what did they see that convinced them, or did they really have the kind of attitude of like, it doesn't matter what's happened. Wentz is our guy. As soon as we think he's ready, maybe there's an element to that too. Sometimes we don't find these things out for like another season or two when like the disgruntled fired coach decides to go public and say, hey, it was never my decision. So we might find out a season or two from now, hey, we didn't want to do this and this happened, who knows? But I don't know. I'm just confused with what they thought they saw that said Wentz is the better quarterback to win right now,
What do you expect from Sam Howell Sunday?
It's a tricky question. It's almost like I almost expect a little bit of everything, but also nothing, because it's his first game as a rookie. I am trying to keep my expectations level. He obviously has some talent that we've seen. I actually rewatched, someone compiled like a video of every rep he took during the preseason just to kind of get an idea, because I think when months go by, you kind of remember like the top plays he made, but you don't remember everything. I mostly want to see a guy in command of the offense. I want to see a guy out there that looks like he's ready. I don't expect a flawless performance. I don't expect him not to make mistakes. I don't expect, him not to be confused at times by, Dallas isn't a slouch on defense. I think they're probably salivating right now. Oh, we're going up against a rookie quarterback in a game we got to clinch, because I know that's how we feel, right? Yeah. So their D coordinator is probably like, all right, let's look at his film and what can we do to confuse, to get him second guessing. So I don't think they're going to take a light on him, but mostly for him, I expect our kind of a similar offense that we were running with Heineke. Heavy run, take what the defense gives you. If you see the opportunities to go over the top, do it. And hopefully we just get some flashes of the talent and something to build off of. I'm not saying, oh, you need to go out there and throw through 350, 3 touchdowns. I want to see a guy in command. I want to see a foundation set. And that said, it's all hard to see that in one game. So, what more can you get out of one game? We'll find out. I want to see a promise of something for the future, basically.
Ron Rivera seems to me, from his press conference after the game, the flip-flopping this week and Seems like he got some pressure to go to Howell. I don't think he really wanted to. It seems like he's kind of tapping out a little bit. What are your Ron Rivera to you right now, kind of taking into consideration these last few days? What do you see from Ron Rivera, let's say within the next, month?
It's kind of funny that Ron's he feels kind of tepid making this decision, because Ron's our first coach, I think, in the last 2 or 3 coaches that actually he was able to pick the quarterback in the draft, right? Because when he got hired, he came in with Haskins already there. Gruden came in with Robert already there. And, it's hard to know 100% what's true or not, but it seems like both coaches upon hiring were kind of told, I need you to try to figure it out with this quarterback. Like, you're not getting hired unless you at least, with Hal, assuming it was hands off from the owner, I'm just going to give that charity and say it was 100% Ron and the GM's decision. If I'm them, I should be a little excited, unless they think he's just 100% not ready and they're worried that he's getting tossed out there too soon. But to me, for them, it's like, hey, this is the guy that you picked. I know it was a late round pick, but the talent, I mean, there were other guys there too, and this is the one you chose. As far as Ron,
this is your guy.
Yeah, this is your guy. As far as Ron long term or even going forward, I think odds right now is at least Ron will be back next season because of the ownership timeline. The mostly what we've heard is like around March, that it would happen, the actual change of ownership, and that puts you on a pretty tight timeline to try to reshuffle everything. Now, that's not the other thing, is like when it comes to business stuff, that's another element that we don't know what's going on in the background. If there's already discussions of like, what do we want to do? What's the plan? Okay, do we have something in place ready to go the minute I sign that contract to own the team? But I would just say the most, I guess the highest probability is he's back at least for next year. Coordinators, I think that's a little even more tricky, because would Ron even want, if the writing on the wall that next year could be Ron's last year, how eager would he be to be like brand new coordinators in like my kind of like prove it year to the new ownership? So he might try to argue, if I'm coming back, I need my familiar guys. I can't start from like ground zero in what could be that prove it year. So there's a lot of mystery. I think this is one of those offseasons that's hard to make that definitive call on.
Yeah, this offseason is going to be one of the most probably confusing and anticipated, and just everything. It's just, this offseason, this next 2 months is going to be crazy, man. You're the GM, right? Bezos, Jay-Z came in. They see you on the spaces. They listen to you. They like you. They think you know what you're talking about. They make you the GM, say you can make whatever moves you want to make. No more the GM in the offseason. What are the first few moves that you make for this team?
So first thing I'm going to do is try to get Payne locked up. First with a long-term contract, or at least in some type of an extension. If that can't happen for whatever reason, or it's trending towards not, I think that franchise tag is on the table, at least for the first year. I have to see the difference in money doing it a second year, like, because that's too far down the line. We don't know, but I think at least I want to keep that D line together for one more season. Let's see what they can do. You're going to get, an even healthier Chase back. So Payne, lock him up. And then I'm going O-line in the draft. That's one area. And, the thing is, sometimes it looks like you have to rebuild all 5 starting members, but hey, get someone better next to Leno, and maybe Leno goes back to being the player he was, a season ago. Sometimes if you have mediocrity next to you where you can't trust the guy, that affects your game too. Sometimes it's hard to buy into like a player getting so much worse or so much better in a single offseason, and unless it's like injury or age. So you don't like, maybe we get just 2 or 3 starting quality O linemen, and it instantly makes everybody better. But O line's a big area of concern. I would like another linebacker, get some more speed. I think Davis is trending up. Holcomb should be coming back. I'm not sure what Holcomb's contract situation though is. Is he locked up for at least?
He's a free agent.
Like total free agent?
Yep.
Okay. So I might talk to him. See, I mean, I don't know. He's one of those interesting players where like he's a solid contributor.
I think he's good if you can move him back to outside linebacker.
Yeah,
I think he's a starter in this league. Yeah,
he fits a specific role as starter. If you can get him back, do it. But you know, that's the tricky thing about free agency. There might be a team that's more desperate than we are, and we'll throw you more money, and then it's just up to the player what they want to do. But linebacker, I think we could do with another corner too. Because outside of St. Jude's, it's kind of a mystery. Like some weeks they perform well, some weeks they don't, and you don't want that mystery going into every game if you want to contend, right?
I agree. And before you get into the draft, we're going to have you to come back on sometime in February. So I don't want to talk about what you're going to do in the draft yet. Especially I want the comp picks and all those things to calculate, because I know on some draft engines they don't have the third pick on there, but we should have a late third to replace the Carson Wentz traded for Brandon Sheriff last week. And I think we get something for Settle, maybe a 7th round pick towards the end. I don't know if it's the Mr. Irrelevant pick or not, but those things I don't think have calculated on, but no more. We will like to have you to come back on. And today I appreciate you for coming on. No more, just let everyone know where they can find you, your Twitter handle, if you want to Twitter handle, if you want to do your Instagram or whatever, they can find you.
All right, cool. Yeah, thanks for having me. My Twitter handle is at Zero Room in Hell. It sounds kind of a weird thing for like sports, but it's because my Twitter, actually being in the spaces with you guys has kind of got me more sports centric on Twitter. Before it was mostly for like my other stuff I do with a couple guys. We talk about horror movies and stuff. We record our kind of reviews and discussions, all that. So that's where that name came from.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's actually cool that you guys shortened it to No More just for the spaces, because it makes more sense than saying the whole thing every time. But there's that. I upload the episodes to YouTube. You can find that under No More Room in Hell podcast if you type that into the search. And then Instagram is just No Cow Mike. That's kind of my generic name I've had on social media since like the jump, because I'm old enough to have been around at the birth of these websites. So
gotcha.
But yeah, find me there. Find me in the spaces that you guys start. I mean, it looks like we're expanding every day. There seems like there's more and more people joining up. I think I found the first one randomly because I was messing around with spaces when you actually click on the space and kind of look at the list of and they'd all be like NFT stuff, and I was like, what? And then I must have followed the right person on Twitter where your guys' space started hitting up at the top. So I was like, oh, let me see what's going on. And then
that's cool, man.
The rest is history.
I love it. Thank you so much, No More, for John. We know your time is very valuable for you to spend it some with us. We greatly appreciate it. For all of you out there that is watching, that is listening, we appreciate you. Thank you so much. This is Red Zone in the Lab podcast. I am Deuce. One beat, one sound, one heart, one love.
Thank you for listening to Red Zone in the Lab podcast. Please follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Red Zone in the Lab. And you can download our podcast at Spotify, iTunes, and Podbean. And please visit our website at redzoneinTheLab.com. Thank you.